The Zelyari Empire stretched across many stars. Their ships were faster, their warriors stronger, and their leaders more powerful than most known species. But even mighty empires can grow tired. After long wars and heavy losses, the Zelyari were growing weak. Their people were angry. Their army was tired. And the humans, they were not defeated. In the middle of all this tension, the alien queen made a strange announcement. Her name was Queen Zeralia, known for her sharp mind and colder heart. She sat upon a tall crystal throne in the high hall of Varthur, the central palace on the Zelyari homeworld. Her advisors stood silently around her, their long robes dragging across the silver floor. The hall was filled with quiet fear. Everyone waited. The queen raised her hand, and her voice echoed across the room. To bring peace between our empire and the humans, I will make an offering. A marriage between my blood and theirs. One of my daughters will marry a human. Gasps filled the hall. Some of her ministers stepped forward, wanting to speak, but a sharp glance from the queen silenced them. She wasn't asking. She was commanding. That same day, across the stars, a message was sent to Earth. It was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was an invitation. On Earth, Sam was fixing a broken air filter when his name was called. He worked on deep space colony ships and had never expected to meet anyone important. He was just an engineer, a good one, but still unknown. But weeks ago, during a rescue mission near the edge of the galaxy, Sam had pulled an alien ship from danger. He hadn't known who was inside. He only knew someone needed help. Now he was being summoned to the Zelyari homeworld. By royal command, when he landed on Varthur, guards in armor escorted him to the Queen's palace. The buildings were tall and curved like blades, glowing under 3 moons. Alien birds flew overhead. The streets were silent as he passed. He wore simple clothes, clean but nothing royal. He stood tall, unsure, yet calm. In the royal chamber, the queen looked down at him. Her daughters stood beside her, 4 of them, each different from the other. "This is the human?" One daughter whispered, clearly unimpressed. Sam said nothing. He simply bowed. Queen Zeralia studied him. "You saved one of my daughters. Without knowing who she was, without asking for a reward." "That is rare, human," Sam nodded politely. "I saw a ship in danger. I helped." "That's all?" She smiled faintly. "Simple answers. Simple actions. And yet you have changed the future." She turned to her daughters. "You will each spend time with this human. One of you will marry him. This alliance is not a question. It is a path forward." The daughters looked at each other with surprise and confusion. None of them had expected this. Later that night, Sam was given a private room in the palace. It was large and clean, filled with alien art and soft lights. But he could feel the pressure building. "What am I doing here?" He asked himself quietly. He had no desire for power. He didn't want to be treated like a prize, and he certainly didn't expect to marry royalty. But deep down, a voice whispered, "This is bigger than you." Peace between humans and Zelyari could change everything. Suddenly, a knock came at the door. The first daughter entered. Her name was Vera. She was tall, with glowing tattoos across her arms. A warrior. Her voice was firm. "I don't believe in this plan," she said, "but I want to see what makes you so special." She challenged him to a sparring match, not to hurt him, but to test his strength. Sam didn't fight her. He simply dodged, stayed calm, and even made her laugh once. She left with a curious look on her face. The second daughter visited next. Her name was Nira. She wore golden robes and carried ancient books, a scholar. She asked him questions about Earth, about human science, language, and ideas. He answered, honestly, sometimes with humor. She smiled. "You think differently," she said. "That's interesting." Then came the third daughter. Her name was Scylla. She had strange eyes and spoke in soft riddles. A mystic. She touched his hand gently and said, "Your mind is calm, but your heart is heavy." "Why?" Sam didn't answer. He didn't know how. The fourth daughter didn't come that night. Her name was Lyra. She had watched everything from a distance. Back in the Queen's chambers, her advisors spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, why this human?" "He has no titles, no army. No influence. Queen Zeralia looked at the stars outside her window. That is why, she said quietly. Because he is nothing we understand. And perhaps it is exactly what we need. In the days that followed, Sam walked the palace gardens, sometimes alone, sometimes with the princesses. He didn't try to win their favor. He just listened, spoke plainly, and treated each of them with respect. The daughters began to see what made him different, not stronger, not richer but deeply human. And somewhere deep within, something started to change, not just in them, but in him too, because even though he didn't want a crown. Dumping in, their eyes made him wonder if destiny had already chosen a path he could never turn away from. The next morning, the palace was filled with quiet tension. Everyone was watching the human guest now, not as a visitor, but as a possible prince. Sam walked through the wide silver halls, his footsteps echoing softly. He still didn't fully understand why he was chosen, but he wasn't here to play games. His goal was simple: be honest, be respectful, and stay true to himself. But the royal daughters had other plans. Each of them wanted to win, not just because of their mother's order, but because something about the human bothered them. He wasn't afraid. He didn't beg. And somehow, he made them feel seen as more than just princesses. Vera, the eldest daughter and the strongest warrior, made her move first. She brought Sam to the royal training ground. Alien soldiers stood in formation as she handed him a wooden practice staff. You helped one of us once, she said, but that doesn't mean you're ready for this life. Show me you can stand in our world. Sam didn't argue. He took the staff, stood calmly, and simply defended himself. He didn't attack. He didn't try to win. He just moved with care and patience, avoiding her strikes without disrespect. When the match ended, Vera was sweating and smiling. You don't fight to win, she said. You fight to protect. Sam nodded. That's what I've always done. For the first time in her life, Vera felt something strange in her heart, respect, and maybe something more. Nira. The scholar invited Sam to her library. It was larger than any human library he had ever seen, filled with glowing scrolls and whispering machines. She guided him through the shelves, testing his thoughts. Tell me, she asked, why do humans write poetry if it solves no problem? Sam smiled. Because sometimes feelings need a place to live. Nira paused. That answer was not in any book she had read. They spoke for hours, discussing stars, language, and old Zeliari stories. Nira noticed how carefully Sam listened, never interrupting, never acting like he was better, even when he didn't agree. By the end of the day, she gave him a rare scroll as a gift. You think with more than your mind, she said. Syla, the mystic, chose a different path. She brought Sam to a quiet chamber lit by soft blue crystal lights. There were no questions. No challenges, just silence. Close your eyes, she whispered. Feel what cannot be seen. At first, Sam thought it was just meditation, but slowly he began to sense something strange. Peace. Scylla placed her hand over his heart. There is sorrow here, she said. You've lost people? Sam nodded. Yes. You carry it gently. He didn't speak again, but Scylla saw enough. She saw the human spirit that refused to break, even when it was hurt. You are like still water, she told him later. Deep and quiet. I want to understand more. Lyra, the youngest daughter, still hadn't approached him. She kept her distance, watching everything from behind tall curtains and shadowed corridors. She didn't trust this plan. She didn't trust her mother's reasons. And she didn't understand this human who seemed to change everyone without even trying, but her eyes followed him. In the garden, in the hall, in the training room. She watched how he helped the kitchen staff when their trays dropped, how he bowed to every servant, how he never once acted like royalty, and yet carried himself with more dignity than any noble she had met. That night she stood alone in her chamber, staring at the stars beyond the palace dome. Why him? She whispered, but her heart already knew the answer. She just didn't want to admit it. In the high hall, the queen sat quietly while her advisors spoke. 3 daughters have shown signs of interest, one said. The 4th remains silent, said another. The queen waved them off. This is not about who wins him, she said. This is about who sees him. Back in Sam's chamber, he sat alone by the window, thinking he had not expected any of this. The royal treatment, the attention, the pressure. But what confused him most was the feeling growing inside him. These daughters were not just noble blood. They were each strong in their own way, and kind. Beneath the layers, but one face stayed in his mind the most, Lyra, the quiet one. The one who hadn't spoken a word to him yet. Sometimes silence says more than words. The next day, a strange event shook the palace. One of the noble houses, unhappy with the queen's plan, sent a message of protest. A loud one. An explosion shook the outer palace wall. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. Not all Zeliari supported this human union idea. Sam rushed to help. Dust covered the halls. Cries rang out, but he didn't run. He lifted a fallen guard. He calmed a frightened child. He even helped patch a broken energy line. Lyra saw it all from the balcony. Her hands gripped the railing. Her heart raced, not because of fear, but because at that moment she knew something no one else had said out loud. This human did not belong here. But he was exactly what their people needed. After the explosion near the palace wall, the atmosphere changed. It was no longer just about royal daughters choosing a husband. It had become a matter of power, politics, and fear. The nobles were restless. Some whispered that the queen had gone too far by offering her bloodline to a human. Others believed this was a clever game to control the humans in disguise. Either way, tension spread like cold wind through the royal halls. Sam felt it too, though. The queen never spoke of the attack again. The guards doubled. The windows were sealed. And some of the alien servants no longer looked at Sam with kindness. They looked at him like he didn't belong. Still, Sam stayed. Not for power. Not for glory. But because he had seen something in the eyes of the daughters, something real, that night. While walking through one of the palace's quieter corridors, Sam saw her again. Lyra. She was sitting near a glowing wall screen, alone, reading something. In her own language. Her silver blue hair was tied back. Her eyes were tired, but calm. He didn't want to disturb her, but she noticed him and closed the screen gently. You walk too quietly, she said. Sam smiled. Or maybe you listen too well. Lyra tilted her head. It was the first time they had spoken. You are not like most humans we've met, she said. Most demand attention. You avoid it. I don't enjoy being stared at, he replied. I never wanted to be anyone's prize. She nodded. You're not. There was silence, not cold, not awkward, just quiet. Then Sam asked, Why haven't you tried to speak with me like your sisters? Lyra looked away. Because I don't believe in this plan. Not fully. Then why are you still here? She met his gaze, her voice soft. Because I want to understand why I keep watching you. Even when I try not to. The next morning, Sam received a secret message. A small device left outside his door flickered once and played a recording, distorted, but clear enough to understand. It was from a palace servant. A quiet warning. You are being watched. Not just by the queen, but by her enemies. There are those who want you gone. Some want you dead. Be careful. Sam's heart pounded. He didn't know who to trust. Could he tell the queen? Would she even care? Or had she known all along? Later that day he went to see Nira, the scholar. She was studying a political map of the empire when he entered. Nira, he asked carefully, do you believe your mother truly wants peace? Or is there something else happening? Nira looked up slowly. You ask dangerous questions, Sam. I'm not here to play games. If this is a trap, I need to know. Nira walked to the edge of the balcony. Our mother is wise, but not always kind. She has her own reasons for everything. When she makes a move, it's never just one goal. It's always 10. Then what's the real reason behind this marriage idea? Nira sighed. She's testing us? Testing you? Testing the empire? Sam frowned. Testing us for what? To see who deserves to rule, she said. And who deserves to fall? Meanwhile, in the queen's private chambers, two of her most trusted advisors argued in whispers. Your Majesty, one said, this human causes unrest. The nobles are watching closely. You risk rebellion? The queen's face remained calm. Her voice was sharp. Let them watch. Let them fear. Let them wonder. The second advisor stepped forward. Do you really plan to marry one of your daughters to him? A non-Zelyari, a common man? Queen Zeralia turned slowly. I plan for this empire to survive. My daughters have grown proud, careless. They know war and books and prophecy, but they do not know people. She pointed to a star map beside her throne. That human saved one of them without asking for reward. He treats them as equals, and now they begin to change. If one of them is to rule someday, she must understand humility. And he is the mirror that shows them what they lack. In the royal garden, Vera and Scylla were walking together. They didn't often speak with each other alone, but today was different. You've grown quiet, Scylla said. Vera nodded. Because I'm thinking, what if he really is the right one? Scylla's fingers brushed a leaf gently. I saw truth in his heart. I don't need a throne. I just need to know I'm choosing someone real. They looked at the trees. For the first time, both sisters wondered if this human, a man without weapons, armies, or status, had already begun to rule their hearts without even trying. That night, Sam returned to his room and found someone waiting for him. It was Lyra. Her expression was serious. There's something I need to show you, she said. She led him through the hidden paths of the palace, down toward the ancient archives, a place few had access to. Inside were old records, forgotten treaties, and pieces of the queen's original plans. Lyra showed him a scroll. It was written years ago, before the marriage idea was ever shared. It said, if peace cannot be forced by treaty, it must be built through union. Let the human spark a change in my bloodline, and through him, test the future of the crown. Sam stared at the words, stunned. So, this was never about love, it was a test? Lyra looked at him. It started that way, but it may not end like that. Sam stepped back. Everything made sense now. The sudden invitation, the attention, the silence behind the queen's smile. He was not just a guest, he was a key, a weapon, a challenge, and maybe a threat. The truth weighed heavily on Sam's heart. He was never meant to be a prince. He was meant to be a tool, a living test for the queen's daughters. If he failed, the empire would say humans weren't worthy. If he succeeded, one of the daughters would have to choose between love and duty, and now, Sam was no longer sure what to believe. Lyra watched him closely as he stepped back from the ancient scrolls. The chamber was quiet, the soft light from the crystal walls shining gently on his face. You were used, she said honestly. But now things have changed. Sam looked into her eyes. Changed how? You changed us, she said. Each of us. Even the queen sees it. But the question is, will you run or will you stay? Sam didn't answer right away. He looked at the scroll one last time, then turned to Lyra. I didn't come here to win anyone. I just wanted to do what was right. She nodded slowly. That's why we noticed you. Back in the upper palace, the daughters sat together for the first time in weeks. It was an unusual sight. They rarely shared private time. They were too different. Vera with her armor, Nera with her books, Scylla with her silence, and Lyra with her quiet eyes. But now they sat in a circle, without guards, without crowns. This isn't a game anymore, Nera said softly. This is real. I didn't expect to care about him, Vera admitted, but I do. He's not like anyone we've ever met, Scylla added. Then all eyes turned to Lyra. She stayed quiet, then said, I showed him the scroll. There was silence. Did he leave? Nera asked. Lyra shook her head. No, he's still here. The air changed. Something unsaid passed between them. A shared understanding. They weren't rivals now. They were sisters facing the same storm. Later that night, the queen summoned Sam to the starlit garden. She stood near a glowing tree, her royal cloak brushing the ground. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, You know the truth now? Sam nodded. She turned to face him. And yet you remain. I'm not here for power, Sam said. I never was. That is what makes you dangerous, she replied. Sam raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Yes, the queen said. Because you are changing what I cannot control. He stayed quiet. Then the queen said something unexpected. I gave my daughters everything, tutors, warriors, knowledge. But none of it taught them compassion. None of it taught them humility. Then you came, you who owns nothing here, yet gave everything. Sam's voice was steady. So what happens now? The queen looked up at the stars. That depends on which daughter steps forward, and whether you step with her. A few days later, the palace held a celebration, a formal gathering to honor the human guest and the progress of peace between Earth and the HFY. Sam stood in ceremonial robes, his human suit traded for a sleek tunic gifted by Nira. The hall was filled with music, food, and curious eyes, but not everyone smiled. Several nobles still doubted this alliance. Some hid their anger behind false greetings. Others kept their distance. Then the daughters entered, each in royal dress. Each walking toward Sam. First came Vera, who offered him a blade. For protection, she said. You have already defended us once. Then came Nira, who handed him a book. To remind you of what we're still learning. Next was Scylla, who gave him a glowing stone. For calm? When your thoughts are too heavy. Finally, Lyra stepped forward. But she gave nothing. Instead, she looked into his eyes and said clearly, I choose not to compete. I choose to speak. Gasps echoed through the room. The queen watched with unreadable eyes. Lyra continued, Mother, you asked us to test him. We did. And we failed. The queen narrowed her gaze. Explain. Lyra turned to the crowd. We looked at him as a symbol, a tool, a duty, but he saw us as people first. That is why he deserves to be chosen, not by force, but by will. The room grew silent. Then Sam took a step forward. He looked at the queen, then at each daughter, and finally at Lyra, and he said, If I must choose, then let me say this. I don't want power. I don't want a throne. But I will stand with the one who sees me, not as a symbol, not as a test, but as a man. He extended his hand to Lyra. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The entire room watched, breathless. Even the queen, outside the palace, the people of the Zeliori watched the ceremony broadcast. Many were confused, many were curious, but some were moved. For the first time in generations, they saw their royal family do something unexpected. They didn't conquer, they didn't dominate. They chose. And that simple act would soon change the galaxy. The entire palace was still. Lyra's hand rested in Sam's, and the crowd of nobles and leaders could only watch in silence. None of them had expected this ending. They had expected a formal match, a political ceremony, or maybe even a rejection. But what happened was something far more dangerous to those who loved control. It was a true choice, made by the heart. Queen Zeralia stood at the highest step in the hall. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes studied the scene carefully. She had played a long game, one full of hidden plans and quiet tests. But even she hadn't expected this exact result, and yet she did not stop it. She raised her hand and spoke clearly. So be it. Her voice echoed through the hall. Let it be known that Princess Lyra has made her choice, and the human has returned her decision with truth. The nobles murmured among themselves, some in surprise, others in worry. But none dared speak against the queen's words. Then the queen looked directly at Sam. You were never born in this empire. You hold no title. Yet you stood among us with honor and changed what no weapon could. I see now that perhaps peace does not come from bloodlines or crowns, but from the courage to care. She paused and continued, But peace is never accepted easily. There are those who will not understand. There are those who will fight this. Sam nodded slowly. I know, I'm not asking to rule, I just want to help. The queen gave a faint smile. That is exactly why you were chosen. Later that night, the queen summoned her daughters too. Her private chamber, only her daughters. No guards, no advisors, no servants. The chamber was quiet and warm, filled with light from the planet's twin moons shining through the wide glass wall. The daughters sat around her, still dressed in their ceremonial clothes. They waited for her to speak. Finally, Queen Zeralia stood and looked at each of them. Do you know why I truly chose a human? Mira answered first. For peace with Earth? No, the queen said. Vera said, to test us. Partly. Scylla. whispered, to change something. Deeper, the queen nodded at last. Yes, she walked slowly across the room. We were raised in power, we were taught that only strength matters. That feelings are weakness, that control is everything. She turned back to face them. But our people are tired. Their hearts are closing. Their minds are breaking. They do not need rulers who are distant. They need leaders who feel. Then she looked at Lyra. You were the one who said it clearly. He saw you as people, not princesses. That is what I wanted to happen, Lyra blinked. So you planned all of this? I planned to give you a chance, the queen said softly, to grow, to see beyond tradition. There was silence, then Vera asked, and now, what happens next? The queen looked out at the stars. Now, I step down. The daughters gasped. You're abdicating? Nira asked. I'm old, the queen said. Not in body, but in spirit. My reign has reached its limit. One of you must rise. The room grew heavy with shock. But who? Scylla asked. The queen's gaze turned serious. That depends on your next choices. The next morning, news spread across the empire. The queen was preparing to step down, and she had declared that any of her daughters could rise to the throne, but only the one chosen by the people. Not by a royal title, not by blood rank, by action. The empire would watch and decide. And suddenly the daughters weren't just sisters. They were now symbols of different futures. Sam didn't want to be involved in political games. He had no interest in power. But now he was standing next to someone who might become the next ruler of an entire star empire. He looked at Lyra as they walked together in the gardens. Are you ready for what comes next? Lyra gave a soft smile. No, but I'm not afraid. Even if it means losing the throne? She stopped and looked into his eyes. If I lose it by being myself, then I never truly deserved it. Sam admired that it wasn't something taught in royal courts. It was something human. And maybe something more. Meanwhile, in the darker corners of the empire, anger grew. Some noble families saw this change as a threat. They didn't want rulers who listened. They didn't want peace with humans. They wanted control. And now they were planning something dangerous. Back in the palace, the queen was alone in her room, staring at a glowing map of the stars. A small smile appeared on her face. Her empire was changing. Slowly, painfully, but truly. And all because one man who had no titles, no throne, and no claim to power walked in and showed them something different. A human, a spark, a chance. She whispered to herself, let them be shocked. Let them be afraid. It means we are finally waking up. Days passed. Then weeks. The story of the human and the princes had spread far beyond the palace walls. From coal mining moons to the glowing towers of deep space stations, people whispered about the strange change in the Zeliari Empire. Some called it foolish, others called it brave. But none could ignore it. In the heart of it all, Sam remained the same. He still wore simple clothes. He still walked through the palace gardens without guards. He still spoke to the workers with kindness, and helped fix broken machines when no one asked him to. And beside him, always now, was Lyra. She no longer walked behind anyone. She walked beside him, calm and confident. But as their bond grew stronger, so did the threats. One cold evening, a trusted palace guard ran into the queen's chamber with urgent news. Your Majesty, we have intercepted a message from a noble faction. They plan to remove the human by force. The queen's eyes narrowed. When? Tonight? She stood without hesitation. Get my daughters, and bring him to me. Sam didn't expect danger that night. He was sitting with Lyra under the sky dome, telling her stories about Earth's oceans. She listened with wonder in her eyes, imagining water as far as the eye could see, but before he could finish, a sharp sound echoed through the dome. A door opened quickly. Vera entered, sword in hand. Get up! Now! Sam stood fast. What's going on? Lyra already knew. They're coming for you. In a hidden hallway of the palace, the queen stood waiting with Scylla and Nira. Guards were placed along every exit. When Sam and Lyra arrived, the queen looked at him directly. I gave this empire a chance to choose peace. Some want war instead. They see you as a threat. Sam nodded. I'm not afraid. I know, the queen said. But I will not let them hurt you. Scylla stepped forward and placed a glowing charm in Sam's hand. This will protect your body. Neera handed him a thin chip. This holds proof of who planned this attack. If anything happens to us, make sure it reaches Earth and the Council of Stars. Sam looked at them both, surprised. Why are you trusting me with this? Lyra answered. Because you earned it. Then Vera turned to the queen. Let me fight. Let them come. The queen nodded. But no blood if it can be avoided. The attackers struck just before moonrise. Masked figures wearing noble family colors broke into the eastern wing of the palace. They were fast, trained, and armed with shock weapons, but they didn't expect what they found. Waiting in the dark hall was Vera, and she didn't wait to speak. She moved like lightning. Disarming 2 in seconds, Scylla used her mind to push. Another into sleep.nir sealed the exit doors with her knowledge of the palace systems, and Lyra guided. Sam through secret paths, her hand never letting go of his dot when they reached the queen again. The attack was already ending. The last rebel surrendered when he saw his blade held to his throat by a human. Sam had stopped him using only a pole from the garden, not to hurt him, but to protect Lyra. The queen walked into the middle of the scene. She looked at the captured rebels. Then at her daughters. Then at Sam. And she raised her voice. Loud enough for all in the palace to hear. Let all who still doubt understand this. This human is not our enemy. He is not a danger. He is proof that trust can grow, that change is possible, and that we are more than our bloodlines. She turned to Sam and spoke more quietly, just for him and her daughters. You saved my people again. Not with weapons, but with your presence. Sam shook his head. Your daughters saved me. I just gave them a reason to believe. The very next morning, the queen made it official. She stepped down from the throne, not with sadness, but with pride. And then she made the announcement that would echo through the stars. Let the people choose the next leader. Let the empire decide, not by fear, not by tradition, but by truth. Votes were gathered across all colonies and cities. And when the results were counted, the people had chosen Lyra, not because of her name, but because of what she stood for. She had shown calm during fear. She had protected the weak. She had chosen love not for gain. But from the heart, Lyra became the new ruler of the Zeliari Empire. But she made one thing clear. I will lead. But I will not stand alone. She placed Sam's hand in hers before the galaxy. This human is not my shadow. He is my light. Years later, peace between Earth and Zeliari became real. Trade grew. War shrank. Cultures mixed. And in every history lesson, every child was taught the story of a man with no crown, a man with no power, a man who came not to rule, but to remind a mighty empire what it meant to care.